And if words cannot repay the debt we owe these men, surely with our actions we must strive to keep faith with them and with the vision that led them to battle and to final sacrifice. President Ronald Reagan, 1984. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, Gold Star families. As you have heard, my name is Scott Michael Legg. I'm an active duty Marine First Sergeant, and I've been given the opportunity to serve in your local area. Memorial Day is a solemn occasion where we honor those Americans who sacrificed their lives for the freedoms we all cherish. It is my great honor to have been given the opportunity to say a few words during this important day of remembrance. I entered military service in 1999. I was stationed aboard Camp Pendleton, California, with an infantry unit, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marine Regiment, also known as 3-5. When our country was attacked, and everyone's lives changed in an instant. In that moment, being a Marine in a ground combat unit took on a new meaning. From that day forward, training and preparation as an infantry unit had transformed. Before September 11th, we were not at war, and only a few men in my battalion had ever seen combat. Most of us believed that we would complete our enlistments like so many others, without ever having to enter a combat zone or bring arms against an enemy in another country in defense of our own. After that infamous day, we each knew we would be thrown into combat operations at any time. Being unprepared was not an option. The last thing any of us wanted was to be subpar in our knowledge of warfighting, or to be physically, mentally, or emotionally incapable of performing our duties in a contested environment. Each Marine took on the personal responsibility of readying himself for the day that he would meet the enemy, and as a result, we became better than we had ever been individually, and even stronger as a battalion. We pushed ourselves because we didn't want to let the Marine to our left or our right suffer for any of our possible shortcomings. In the winter of 2002, the 1st Marine Division, including the 5th Marine Regiment, deployed to Kuwait. In anticipation of ground combat operations in Iraq. Once we arrived, every day was filled with training for our future combat engagements. For those of us in 3-5, we were fortunate to cross the line of departure with Marines and sailors who we had spent so much time with. We spent years together, and we knew each other well. We knew each other's families, children, spouses, hopes, fears, expectations, goals, and dreams. We were one big family, and we loved each other as brothers. Just like a brother, we would do whatever we could to keep them safe and out of danger. Close to midnight on March 19, 2003, the entrance points in the earth berm that separated Kuwait from Iraq were blown, and 3-5 entered the breach. I was part of Cat Platoon and one of the very first vehicles of Marines to cross the line of departure into combat operations in Iraq. Our lives would never be the same from that moment forward. For the next 7 months, we would all bear witness to some of the greatest acts of valor and bravery by American men and women for the sake of an oppressed people dictated by an evil regime. We would also feel the pain and emotions that come with losing our fellow brothers in arms. I remember the night we lost Major Kevin Nave, 36, of Union Lake, Michigan, who died on March 26th, or Lance Corporal David Owens Jr., 20, of Winchester, Virginia, who died of wounds received in action on April 12th in central Iraq. I remember the battle we lost Staff Sergeant Ryan Tejada, 26, of New York, New York, who was killed during combat operations against enemy forces in northeast Baghdad on April 11th. I remember very vividly every detail and the exact moment we lost Corporal Eric Silva, 22, of Hopeville, California, when he was killed in action on April 3rd. And Navy Hospital Corpsman 3rd Class Michael Van Johnson Jr., 25, of Little Rock, Arkansas, who was killed in combat on March 25th. As a service member, one of the hardest things you will ever have to go through is seeing one of your fellow warriors draw his or her last breath in a combat zone. I personally know the pain of these moments, and although I'm not the family of those Marines and sailors, I can empathize with them for their loss. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't remember the events of those days and think about these men and many more that I have known that have never came home. And while our nation has one day dedicated to the remembrance of fallen service members, for many of us, including the families of loved ones, we remember and miss them every day. We each remember and honor them in our own ways. Some raise a glass, some sit in silence. But for every one of us that was touched by the life of a fallen warrior, we will never forget them. Memorial Day is an opportunity for us as a country to pay our respect to those who died while serving our nation. We also acknowledge the immense debt we owe their families and loved ones left behind. Memorial Day is traditionally observed with the laying of the wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown in Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia, and by religious services, parades, and speeches nationwide. Flags, insignia, flowers, these are all placed on the graves of veterans in local cemeteries across our great land. And this is the reason why we are gathered here today, to memorialize, to preserve the memory of those who have sacrificed themselves for us and for our freedoms. We do these things to honor the loyalty and bravery of our fallen in the noble cause of military service. The history of our nation and those who served can be summed up in a short and simple yet fitting phrase. They are ordinary people who, by virtue of their service and sacrifice, are extraordinary. The men and women of this great country have never hesitated to answer the call to defend our enemies, our nation against our enemies, giving their all to preserve the freedoms we as Americans value. Since the first shots of the Revolutionary War in Lexington, Massachusetts, American military members have paid the ultimate price for the freedoms we hold dear today. During the Revolutionary War, we lost more than 25,000 patriots who fought for our independence from Great Britain. America lost more than 500,000 of our own during the Civil War. 525,000 Americans died in World Wars I and II, while an additional 36,000 and 58,000 Americans perished during the Korea and Vietnam Wars respectively. Mercifully, the wars of my generation have not had the same devastating losses, but the toll is still high. Since 2001, over 7,000 service members have paid the ultimate sacrifice during operations in Iraq, Afghanistan, and various countries around the globe. All of these men and women served with distinction and honor and are heroes to us all. As we remember those that we have lost, let us not forget their families, for they have sacrificed more than we can comprehend. They offered their sons and daughters, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, mothers, and fathers for service to our nation and countries throughout the world. President Ronald Reagan's speech at Arlington National Cemetery on Memorial Day 1984 was one of the most noted Memorial Day speeches of the Vietnam era. In his remarks, Reagan said that Vietnam veterans were never defeated in battle and were heroes as surely as any who have fought in a noble cause. At the conclusion of his speech, he awarded the Medal of Honor to an unknown soldier who was killed in that war and whose remains were added to the Tomb of the Unknown. In bestowing the honor, Reagan remarked, we will never know the answers to the questions about his life. We do know, though, why he died. He saw the horrors of war, but bravely faced them. Certain his own cause and his country's cause was a noble one, that he was fighting for human dignity, for free men everywhere. The military is an apolitical institution, and as such, we're ordered to carry out whatever mission is dictated to us. Once the order comes down, we execute it free from any bias or personal objection. Every service member, past or present, raised our right hand and swore an oath. In that oath, we swore that we would support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. For some, that oath meant giving their lives in its defense. As service members and Americans, we believe that freedom is our greatest gift, and our young men and women are willing to fight to preserve this for future generations. We also believe in defending other nations' right to freedom, and when called upon, we are ready to respond with force if necessary. In his letter to all of us in the 1st Marine Division on the eve of battle in Iraq, Marine General Mattis wrote, For decades, Saddam Hussein has tortured, imprisoned, raped, and murdered the Iraqi people, invaded neighboring countries without provocation, and threatened the world with weapons of mass destruction. The time has come to end his reign of terror. On your young shoulders rests the hopes of mankind. In our fight to remove this evil man, we saw firsthand what he had done to his own people. We didn't fight for oil or politics, but for each other, and the people just like us that wanted to raise their children safely and provide them with a better life. In each of my combat deployments, every Marine or sailor that I fought alongside genuinely cared about the local people. They saw the elderly that reminded them of their grandparents, children that looked like their own, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters. In their faces, each could have been their fellow Americans. Every one of us fought for them and for our fellow servicemen and women. When you are decisively engaged in a firefight with the enemy, you are not thinking about the reasons you are there. You are only thinking about self-preservation and destroying the enemy in order to protect those around you. You have trained and prepared so that you can protect the person to your right or left, regardless if they are military or civilian. We have seen the Medal of Honor presentations for service members that have risked their lives or even made the ultimate sacrifice so that their fellow brothers in arms would live. Sacrifice lives in the heart of every American service member. They sacrifice for their country. They sacrifice for freedom of all mankind. They sacrifice for their fellow service members at any cost. Marine General John Kelly gave a speech titled 6 Seconds and Then Into Eternity, and I would challenge each of you to read or watch it. In his speech, he details the final moments of 2 young Marines as they sacrifice themselves to save hundreds of fellow Marines, sailors, and civilians. He stated, they only had 1 second to live, and I think they knew. The truck explodes. The camera goes blank. 2 young men go to their God. 6 seconds. Not enough time to think about their families, their country, their flag, or about their lives or their deaths. But more than enough time for 2 very brave young men to do their duty. Those are the kind of people who are on watch all over the world tonight for you. And as amazing as this selfless act of service may seem, it is the norm. To the families of the fallen service members, he said, I know God will help them bear this inconceivable burden. A burden, I am told, by those who know that never goes away or even gets lighter. And help them find comfort in the fact that their son was doing exactly what he wanted to do, was doing it with the finest men on this earth, and for a cause that meant more to him than his life. The reality is, it doesn't matter if we are comforted, or if we accept it or not. It only matters that he did. We believe that God gave America the greatest gift he could bestow on man while he lives on this earth: freedom. We also believe he gave us another gift nearly as precious: our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Coast Guardsmen, and Marines. To safeguard that gift and guarantee no force on this earth can ever steal it away. President Franklin Roosevelt said, those who have long enjoyed such privileges as we enjoy forget in time that men have died to win them. With the chaotic lives we lead today, it is easy for most Americans to think of Memorial Day as a 3-day weekend. We that are gathered here today, and millions more, know what this day is truly about. It is a time for our nation to reflect, to remember and honor those men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice defending and supporting our great country and its ideals and interests. While remembering the sacrifice of so many, including those we love, how can we that are still here ever repay them for what they have given to us? There are times for sorrow and grief, and the pain of loss will never go away. But those that we have lost would not want us to live in misery. Instead, we need to live our lives in their honor and make them proud. Think about the loved one or fellow warrior you've lost and their best attributes. Maybe it was their courage. Maybe it was their compassion towards others. Maybe it was their unselfish way. Or think about what their passion was. Maybe it was building classic cars or traveling. Maybe it was being out in nature, or riding motorcycles. Whatever you think of, try and incorporate that into your life. When you do these things, you will feel closer to them as well as honor their memory. That is what they fought for us to be happy, to live our best lives in the greatest nation in the world. In closing, tomorrow I would ask that each and every one of you take a moment to remember the fallen and say a prayer for the families of those extraordinary men and women. Without each and every one of them reaching back to 1776, we would not have the freedom to gather here today and honor them. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to be part of this remembrance today and share some of my thoughts with you. May God bless all men and women currently deployed in harm's way, providing us the opportunity to enjoy this beautiful day in our great nation. God bless her through these challenging times, and God bless each and every one of you. Thank you, and Semper Fidelis.